So you're not going to believe this, but I was actually on the investment banking team that sold 3DFX to NVIDIA. I was
Back
with Robertson Stevens
back in the day. Yeah.
back in
Fantastic.
the
Yeah.
day. That's your baby.
That was one of my babies, Azul being my second one here. But yeah, those were fun times. The 90s were there was a lot of fascinating things going on in the world of chip design and certainly in the world of graphics. So we had a great ride with 3DFX, and as you know, took them public. Robbie Stevens was our underwriter, or helping us on the going public as well. And yeah, ultimately we sold that to NVIDIA in 2000.
So you sell 3DFX to NVIDIA, and do you immediately start on your next company?
No, so initially, I was ready to do something new, and having done graphics for about a decade, because I began my career at Silicon Graphics and then joined a startup company that then was acquired, and then we left that to start 3D Effects. So I was about 10 years into all sorts of different things in the graphics domain, and I was interested in pursuing some other things. And so I was, doing the usual thing that you do. You kind of start thinking about ideas to start companies, you start networking. And I was introduced to a couple of people that ultimately were the co-founders with me of Azul, through a mutual friend, one of the graphics architect that I had hired at 3DFX, introduced me to Gil Tanay, who was one of the co-founders, our CTO, and they were talking about this thing called Java, which I had heard of, but was really not that familiar. But one of the things that really intrigued me was an opportunity to build something that we thought was very transformative for the enterprise segment. And at Silicon Graphics, I had worked primarily in kind of scientific computing, and then obviously at 3DFX, it was more very much focused on the consumer side and the OEM business to some degree. And what I became intrigued with was an opportunity to build a company that was serving the enterprise customer base, and that was going to be new, and I thought very interesting. And what was also very appealing was that one of the things that happens in the graphics market is that there's a very close cooperation between the chip designers and the software engineers. And so you do this co-design of building, kind of a perfect chip to meet the needs of what the software engineers would like to do. And so we took that philosophy when we first started Azul, because Azul initially was a hardware company, and we built silicon chips, actually custom microprocessors that were highly tuned and optimized for running Java-based workloads in enterprise. And we built kind of the perfect Java CPU, with the applications and Java applications in mind. And that was how we began Azul.
And how long before you decided to shed the hardware piece to the business?
Yeah, so Azul was started with some incredible venture capitalists. We had really a who's who of Excel partners and Redpoint, and ultimately we brought on others like Credit Suisse, and just fantastic set of backers. Meritech was involved with that, and part of that experience was that we very aggressively really ramped up to build kind of a long-term hardware roadmap. For us, the inflection point was in 2008, and as all companies were really forced to make some hard decisions. And what we were going through at the time was that we had built 3 generations of these compute appliances, custom hardware, all that, and we had acquired over 100 customers in the enterprise sector that were running truly business critical workloads on these compute appliances that we'd sold them. And we were getting fantastic feedback. Our enterprise customers were telling us that Java is the backbone of all the application development that we're doing. It's incredibly important and part of our long-term future. More and more applications were being developed, in Java, et cetera, et cetera. Our customers loved our technology. We were getting great feedback, in terms of us as a global company being able to support these very demanding applications and need across the globe. But the big but was we want to do all this, but we really just want software, right? We want to be able to have great flexibility, be able to deploy on-prem in the cloud. Hybrid was that whole era of cloud computing was coming on strong at that point. Commodity servers were getting really, really inexpensive. And so the ability to deploy on commodity servers, popularity of Linux, all these things were kind of coming together. And we were selling these compute appliances. So we were, to some degree, kind of fighting macro trends at that point. So we had, the benefits of we were right on Java. We were definitely right on the need to have, in essence, a better Java runtime. But we were fighting the stream in terms of how that product ultimately could and should be, procured and deployed by the customer. So 2008, as the world was caving in, and all companies really had to make some very tough decisions in terms of how you're going to get through that. For us, that was an important inflection point that we decided at that point that we needed to pivot the company and focus on pure software products, and ultimately that transforms your operating model as a company, transforms the way that you go about raising money for the continued development of the product. It always takes more money and more time to get out of a complex business like hardware. So, it took us a number of years to do that. But ultimately, I think what allowed us to be successful with such a transition was that we stayed true to our customers. Every existing customer that we had with the hardware product, we put a plan in place to eventually move them to the software product offering. That went a long way in terms of just the customers appreciating that we were there for them, that we weren't going to kind of just immediately end of life our hardware products and kind of, tell them good luck. We really were there to support them. And I think that really solidified Azul's reputation as a very customer-centric company that was always going to stand by our customers and do the best we could, even through some difficult transitions. So I think that mentality has really served us very well through the years.
And your software solution is well known among large enterprises and I think across sectors. Maybe could you give us some kind of high level, maybe some key stats on how pervasive Azul is in corporate enterprise?
Absolutely. So we have hundreds of millions of downloads a year of our Java runtime, which is called Zulu. And for those of you that don't know, all of Java is developed in the open source community. So there's an open source project called OpenJDK. It's arguably the most successful open source project ever. And I would even include very successful projects, for example, like Linux as part of that. And the reason I make that statement is because Java has never forked or fragmented. When you say that you are running Java version 21, and you have a Java runtime that supports Java 21, that really means something. And it means that you not only adhere to the spec, but it also means that you pass hundreds of thousands of compatibility tests that's called the TCKs. And the fact that there has been truly a who's who of the biggest, most important software and technology companies in the world that support and extend and evolve Java as part of the OpenJDK project. And we've all done that while maintaining backwards compatibility across different Java runtimes within a Java version. All these things has really made Java, and continue to be the dominant language for enterprise computing, and one which really represents the backbone of most enterprise workloads that deal with transaction logic and business logic and those types of things. And so our products are all based on the OpenJDK project. We have a combination of pure open source projects, freely available, like, for example, the Zulu JDK that I mentioned. But then we also have products called Platform Core and Platform Prime. And these are, our paid offerings. And Platform Core specifically is a curated, highly secure build of OpenJDK that our enterprise customers buy when they need long-term support. They need an alternative to, for example, Oracle when they acquired Sun. They inherited the Java business, and so Oracle over time has continued to restrict the license under which Oracle Java can be used. They've continued to increase pricing. So many of our customers around the world are looking for truly a drop-in equivalent to Oracle Java, but one that is inherently open source and much more cost effective. And so that's what's called our platform core business. That business has really flourished, through the years as more and more enterprises are looking to move off Oracle Java. We have a performance JVM that is called Platform Prime, and Platform Prime is in essence better than OpenJDK. We start with that OpenJDK foundation that I mentioned, but then we enhance it in a number of ways. We enhance it with a better compiler, which emits faster code. We enhance it with a better garbage collector, which helps with the pauses and hiccups that are oftentimes associated when running Java workloads at scale. We enhance it to improve some other of the challenges when you deploy Java workloads in terms of how long it takes an application to start up and to get full speed, et cetera, et cetera. So we've really built all sorts of technologies that allow for Java computing at scale with large scale cloud deployments in a very, very cost effective manner. And so Platform Prime is that product offering that really serves, for example, speeds and feeds like the banking sector. If you're running a trading application or that sort of infrastructure based on Java, you're probably running on Platform Prime today. We've done exceptionally well in that space. Ad tech, gaming, large e-commerce, these are market segments that we've done exceptionally well in terms of a disproportionate amount of wins in those sectors. And, really for us, Platform Prime is about the speeds and feeds markets like electronic trading, but it's also, and this is kind of the emerging huge amount of growth that we've seen, is that in the world of cloud computing, everyone complains about spending more than they want to in the cloud and sort of victim of their own success, right? A lot of activity happening in the cloud, more and more workloads being deployed in the cloud, many of those workloads being Java. In fact, a lot of the surveys that we and others have done show that over half of the typical enterprise spend is actually being spent in the cloud running Java workloads. So there's a lot of money being spent in Java workloads in the cloud. Platform Prime can be used to be able to reduce that amount of cloud spending. And the equation is fairly simple there. If you have a faster Java runtime, you need less compute to be able to handle the same amount of workload. And as a result of that, we're able to achieve significant cost savings for our customers in the cloud. And so the real two main use cases for Platform Prime are speeds and feeds, latency, and all that kind of thing, and then cloud cost optimization. Both those segments are really growing quite impressively, and we're very proud of the success we've had in those.
Having been a quarterback, you've probably learned a lot about leadership early on, and I'm always interested to hear how kind of sports helped inform your leadership style and how you set the culture of your company. So what's the culture like at Azul?
Well, I like to think that we are a very professional organization. I can contrast that with 3DFX. 3DFX, we were all in our kind of 20s, just kind of crazy. Like it was just a bit of the wild, wild west in the graphics wars at that point. And obviously we were a lot younger, and many of us also were really learning firsthand to be managers, to be leaders, and certainly many bumps along the road. I think Azul, partly because we now have more experience under our belt, I'd say that we've tried to create a culture that really recognizes and places a high order on a professional work environment. One that values hiring great people and giving them the authority to do their jobs, trying to stay away from micromanagement, and really creating a very positive work culture that eliminates politics and fiefdoms, and really encourages teamwork. And ultimately, getting back to your question on my sports background, I always loved participating in team sports, right? And whether it was football or basketball or other things when I was younger. And that's the way I feel about Azul as well, is that, this isn't just about me, right? I'm helping direct the company, but it's really all about us, right? And I think that ability to hire the right people that understand the importance of teamwork, that we're all in this together. Um, Inevitably, different groups may have different challenges, right? Could have engineering goes through a phase where, maybe there's product issues that, more bugs than we'd like to see, and you really got to rally around and help them. Or sales may have a tough quarter where maybe we weren't able to hit our goals. But by just emphasizing the importance of staying together, being together, we all win as a team. We all even those occasional losses, we lose as a team as well. And have a short memory, always look forward, never get too high, never get too low, right? It's the same thing you kind of hear on Sunday commentary in the NFL. It's the same kind of philosophy and culture that we try to instill here.